Hey, everybody. Welcome to the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast. Hey, what we do on this podcast is talk about what B2B sales and marketing leaders, operators, and experts are doing today to really break through and grow their businesses at exponential levels. Let's get it in the interview. At the end, I'll give you an update on my courses, and you can check out my website at b2brevenue.com, and it's Brian G. Burns on LinkedIn. Hey, Larss, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so I'm Larss. I'm Danish in the morning for Brian. So basically CEO of a Danish company. We're working on the very, very interesting topic of B2B attribution. Basically looking at how can B2B companies, like the people like listening to the podcast here, how can they think about revenue when they're doing marketing? I think that's the core here.
Cool. How'd you get interested in this?
Yeah, I think that's a long story. So I'll cut it short. But I was head of product actually at a Danish growth company that's called Trustpilot. It's not that well known in the US, but it's quite big in Europe. So it's like a review company. So we did a platform where people could review e-commerce companies, a bit like you'd have Bazaar Boys. Like think of Bazaar Boys are like TripAdvisor just for companies in general. And as head of product, I was also responsible for the whole review platform, which was like a public platform. And it generated a ton of leads for us. And we were quite conscious that we wanted people who worked on the product to be accountable for real business results. So I was challenging that team that was responsible for the platform to say, hey, how are you contributing money to the business? And they said, yeah, we generate tons of leads for the sales reps. And then I went to the sales reps and said, yeah, that's right, but they're not converting. I think like that's the classical conversation that marketing and sales will be having. Like I'm generating a ton of leads and sales will say, hey, but they don't work. And we had exactly that problem.
I think everyone has that problem. Yeah.
I think there are definitely solutions to it. It's like having very tight relations between marketing and sales can help out. But what I think us being product, it was more complicated even because it's not a standard model that product is contributing that much demand to sales.
Yeah.
So what we went looking for products that could fix this for us and basically do kind of connect all the stuff that was going on early funnel with revenue, so we could see like, are those teams actually worth the salary we pay them, or should we make them do something else more useful, like build a product we can sell?
Yeah.
And that's what started this. So we basically built up an attribution model for this company. It was called Trustpilot, and we started seeing, okay, actually some of those leads were good. It was contributing a ton of money to the company. It was, I think it depends on how you define a good lead, because they were not converting at very high rates, but there were a lot of them, right? Yeah. So that was how this got started. And then the fact that we couldn't really find a product that worked well with our setup. And then we spun it out and started a company and started doing like product that would help other people do this. So that's the story about like why am I doing this?
And because attribution in B2B isn't as tight as it is in B2C. And B2C,
exactly.
You put an ad, they buy or they don't buy.
Yeah.
It's a branding ad, for the car or the clothing thing. And you don't care about attribution there. You care about vanity, number of people who see it.
And I think like in B2C, there is a lot of things that are easier. There are also a lot of things that are very hard, I think. And there are companies out there that are solving that very well. So like in B2C, people care about like, what about the kind of interaction between my online channels, my offline channels, and maybe my shops, right? I have a retail channel. How is that influencing each other? That's also super hard. And there are other companies out there solving that very well. I think like what you're saying, like B2B, it's hard because very often the sales cycle is so long. And of course you're selling B2B, so you're not selling, you're selling to people, but they're representing companies, and you're not selling to a single person, you're selling to a group of people that are representing like a demand unit or whatever you want to call it. It's like there is maybe someone who's interested in the product that you're building or finds it useful. So that's maybe the first touch. It could be somebody you met at a conference, whatever. And it might be like, hey, but can we even implement this product? If it's a tech product, you want to bring some engineers in. Can we does it have APIs? Can we integrate, et cetera, et cetera? And then in Europe, we have GDPR. I don't know if you know about that. Super restrictive privacy regulations. So you're going to bring in your legal people to say, hey, can we buy this product? Is it legal? Is it okay for us to use it? And you're up to at least 3 people there. And then maybe none of these people can actually use a credit card. Yeah. That's a 4th person. So you got this big group of people, and that might sometimes hundreds of people, but very often at least this 4 people group is not unusual, right? How do you figure that out in your nice B2C scenario? It's great, right? Because you got this one guy, he sees the ad, clicks it, comes in, buys his shoes, pixel fires, and Google will tell you, hey, you made this much money from our ad. Same scenario in B2B, it sucks, right? Because that's the guy with the credit card, and he goes yeah, okay, I'm going to buy Simple CRM, type Simple CRM, okay, direct hit to the website, go, hey, I would like a call. Yes, I would like to buy this product. Here's my credit card. And then you report it. And if you use the same model, what you have there is just okay, so it was just a direct hit that turned into sales.
Right. It's complicated in so many levels in that people don't use their business email.
Yeah. Also that.
And a lot of times, the bigger the company, the less likely they are to be an employee. At least in the U.S., it's probably more than half are contractors or consultants.
Oh, yeah. Also that. And I think that's exactly. I think that those are so we're building a product for this, and we're struggling with tons of different things. And I think this is one thing that we haven't nailed yet, which is super interesting. It's how we're working, talking to a company, they're selling accounting software. Okay, so who's the most likely person to actually introduce this product to a company? Well, that's an accountant. Yeah. So who's the first touch for that deal, right? Who actually, how did you actually generate that deal? That was that accountant, right? Yeah. That said, hey, you should be using this piece of software because that's super useful, and I know how to work with it, so I'll bill you less if you use that. And of course, if the software company that's building the accounting software, if they are clever, they have a partner program so they can control this and they know about that contribution. Yeah. But maybe they never thought about that. So they might have a partner program that is mainly seen as hey, for top tier accountants, but they got a whole forest, a very small accountants just doing the same thing. And they don't know how much is that contributing. And that then leads to maybe over attributing to other sources, right?
Well, that's it. And a lot of people get enamored with pixels and retargeting, but there's a lot of industries where people, majority of the time, they're on their phone. They're not on a desktop.
Yeah.
So a lot of the affiliate codes and pixels and stuff, they look at it here, they browse it, they screen save it so they remember it. Then they go to their desktop.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the paper trail, the little electronic trail is all messed up again.
That is the messiness of it. And I don't think that there is you kind of whichever way you attack this, you have to accept the idea that it's not going to be perfect.
Right.
I think the ultimate proof that whatever you're doing in the field of attribution is good is that when you use those insights that you're generating from your attribution system, when you use those to do things and you take actions, then your business improves. I think that's really the number one way to look at it, because it's never going to be the truth, because people are switching browsers, they're going incognito, they're wiping their cookies, they're doing all these things. So there's you can't fix that.
Right.
So I think all you can do is say, hey, okay, I'm going to get the most accurate set of data that I can, also within what is actually legal. So you're going to get that data, connect all the behavioral data that you get access to, resolve it against what's going on in your business, so like your CRM and all your deal closing, the revenue coming in, and you look at that, and then you try to make decisions based on it. If it works out, you're making more money, good.
Yeah.
The attribution system is good. If it doesn't work, well, okay, take two and go back, try again.
Yeah. I deal a lot with CMOs, and it's a lot of education on a particular, vertical that I know really well. Mm-hmm. Spent my whole life in it, and they're new to it, and they think marketing is marketing. And when I hear that, I know I don't have a prospect.
Yeah.
Right. Because what they do is they spread everything around. They never stick with one thing and try and build a flywheel.
No.
They try. Yeah. Oh, I'll try that trade show this year. Won't do it next year. And so they're not building momentum. Do you talk to CMOs all the time, or you must? Yeah.
I think our kind of key, like the key person for us is the CMO, or occasionally it could be someone in the more commercial side of business, or like someone heading sales, or like the ideal person is someone responsible for both. I think that's a perfect role, right? Because that is one who actually really cares about the two integrating and working well together.
And what does a good attribution model look like if you were to consult with a CMO and a CSO? Let's say.
Yeah, I think a good attribute, going back to what I said, it's like one that works, that if you use it, you get good results. And I think another thing that's important is like when you look at your attribution model, is going to typically be like numbers, right? So you're doing some kind of weighting, or you might be doing some AI or whatever you're doing, assigning value to different touch points. You have your revenue, and then you're assigning value to all the touch points you have, like sales calls, webinars, interactions with your website, app, etc. Like everything you know about. So I think what's important is that when you sit down and you look at individual deals, then you as a team, so that should be like head of marketing, head of sales, like you as a team should agree that this is reasonable. When you look at 10 deals, you should be going like, hey, this is crazy. The attribution model says that all this money was the result of AdWords. And in reality, we can see that it was the result of AdWords, sales calls, like everything you want to bring into your attribution model. So I think having a feeling that it is fair, I think is important, because otherwise people are not going to accept it, and you're not going to work. I think you have to, a good attribution model is one that is accepted between sales and marketing, that everybody says, okay, it might not be the truth, but this is a good enough version of the truth that we're going to work based on that. I think that's a good attribution model.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be this in the middle, because what ends up happening, and I hear this all the time from, very well-known marketing experts, it's like, certain number of these turn into a certain number, the funnel model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't think that really works. I think the smarter you are with both your content for your inbound and your outbound about targeting, because we have that now. We know who we want to sell to in B2B. We know the exact companies, the titles, the players, all of that. But when it comes in, the salespeople, if you have 1,000, what are the 50 that really matter?
Yes.
That's not only, how'd you get them, but how to prioritize them. They put their time on the same thing. I see too many people looking at all 1,000 are equal, and it's like, not equal.
No.
Who's most likely to buy?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of back to like a good attribution model is one that actually delivers results. I think a good attribution model should also help you do that. Like you are generating, this company I talked about where I worked before, we generated maybe 8,000 to 10,000 inbound leads every month. So that's pretty good.
Yeah.
they did not all convert equally, right?
No, they don't.
They did not all convert equally, and some of them were definitely not marketing, like would not be deemed a marketing qualified lead or sales qualified lead. But even when we said, okay, like this is the group of things that are like hand raisers and people who are, okay, they requested a demo, they requested a callback from a sales rep, or they were using our free products that, hey, I want to buy the product. Like
Right,
those were, they were sales qualified leads, but they didn't all convert equal.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't all convert equal. So like one group, you'd have like a sales rep had to do 100 calls to close 2 deals. Sometimes they do 100 calls, they close 8 deals, right? So start by calling those with the 8 deals. And I think we also, like with attribution, saw how some of these deals, like one thing is like, now it gets a little like, because you got like the sales rep is thinking about closing deals, as like take one step back and think about the business, you also want him to close good deals. So what about second purchase or
bigger deals,
deal size, or like lifetime value of the deal, like whatever your metric is, that is also something you should be thinking about in attribution, right? So we could see that how some of those sales qualified leads based on behavior, we could see like they would convert better. So, okay, push them out the funnel. Some of them would also command like a much better lifetime value. Okay, we're going to advance those. And it might not even be like, if you let the sales rep pick, he might not pick the one that's going to deliver the longest lifetime value because he cares about closing his quota that month, right? Typically.
Yes.
Or that quarter, or however he is, whatever his comp plan looks like. So I think like there you have to be like, if you're good at this, between marketing and sales, you're actually holding back leads, just making sure that they're getting the ones first that you want them to sell.
Yes.
Right? You know that they like one, more likely to be successful, but also more likely for the company to be successful, right?
Yeah, because I think today we're, with the opposite of the way it was 10 years ago. Today we're overwhelmed with data.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Right. And we use the word lead, and most of the time we just mean contact. Right.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So there needs to be, what we call in the medical field triage, right? You go to the emergency room, someone has a cold, another person has, their arm hanging off, right? A nurse does triage.
Yes.
The person who sees the doctor first isn't the person with the most money or who got there first. It's the person the most need. And like what you said, what is the best deal for the company, and putting that the most energy towards that.
Yeah.
And how do we get marketing to get rewarded for the best leads for the company instead of the number of leads for the company?
Yeah. I think that is really up to marketers to start committing to real value. And I think like the very strong marketing executives out there, that's what they're doing. Like when you look at this, like ads for hiring ads for CMOs, like what does it say? Like some companies I see, they're looking for a CMO who is going to be held responsible for revenue.
Yeah.
This is
and
about
that's
revenue.
it. Because what I'm seeing today and in the bigger B2B sales, the 6-figure, 7-figure deals, is very high touch, in person, micro events, right? Or committees, or joint development of content versus just advertising.
Yeah.
Because even though they're more expensive, but who you want to sell to.
Yeah. I think like those very like giga deals or like selling true enterprise, that's a different game. And basically you will also, like as a company selling those deals, probably have a couple of people working on a deal, and you're working on that deal for a long time. So you don't do attribution in numbers like that. You're looking at, this is my deal. I'm hunting, like I'm not even hunting this deal. I'm like growing it over so long. It takes a year to land this deal, right? So we know everything about it. I'm bringing in experts to do analysis and like That's a different beast, right?
And how about as far, are you seeing maybe in your country or in Europe in general, kind of agencies developing all this MarTech stuff, whether they do it themselves for the company or they come in and they do like marketing operations and implementations?
Yeah, we're not seeing that very much. I think like a lot of what we see is agencies coming in and using standard tools, and like often like too simplistic tools. So they're really using like Google Analytics or Facebook Analytics, or and basically it's the view of the world is too simplistic, and it means that they look at data, and I think Google Analytics looks great and it presents great like visuals and it tells you numbers and it looks like the truth.
Yeah.
So you look at it and you forget the data behind it.
Right.
It feels like the truth. Right. But when you start acting on it, it doesn't work. And I think that's the problem, right? I think we see, and that's also the case in the States, right? That the best companies out there, they're developing attribution models themselves.
Yeah.
Of course, like if you're true enterprise, you'll be talking to Adobe, and like they have products in this space. Where we're seeing kind of the big gap is like the SMB space. So like you're a 500 people company. We can't really afford that big Adobe solution, and building it yourself, that's a lot of work. So those companies are sometimes missing out on the potential there.
Yeah. And are you finding that your job is a lot more or consulting than it is technology implementation?
Yeah, I think like, okay, so we are as a company, a very young company. And I think that's the case for any very young company, that you end up doing a lot of more consultative work. Like, okay, so you're like crunching all this data for me, you're showing me these numbers, like what does it mean?
Yeah.
I think that then it ends up being more consultative, totally.
Well, because at the end of the day, even when you have the data, the person who has the kind of a sense for the market, experience within that market with those people, they're the ones I think that will do well.
Yeah, totally.
You know? And a lot of times marketers have a conflict of interest in that they are not the long-term employees at companies. You know, CMOS, at least in the States, it's like less than a year and a half.
Yeah. I think that is true. And I think like if you go to like growth stage companies, it's even worse, right? I think for some types of companies, you're down to less than 12 months.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen that. I think it comes back to this like what you said about like, okay, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do marketing. So I know my model. And I think a big problem there is you get hired because you are experienced. Okay, so now I'm going to pay a lot of money because you're experienced. So my value lies in being experienced. So when I show up a first day at work, I have to act like I'm experienced. So I can't ask a ton of stupid questions. Right? That's very bad, right? Because like they are paying me like 6 figures, lots of equity, and now he's asking stupid questions.
Yeah,
that doesn't work, right? So you've got a lot of these senior executives coming in, and then they're basically saying, okay, I have a playbook, I'm going to run this playbook.
Yeah.
Even if it's a sort of similar company, when you go into the details, it's not the same. The history of the company, the culture of the company, details of the market, it's not the same. Yeah. And if you're lucky, whatever you did before, it works. And you're a success. But if you're not, but if you're not, it fails.
That's it. And I think the new CMO would be better off consulting with somebody who really understands that market. You know, because I observe them and they do the dumbest, biggest waste of money. You know, they get a booth at like Salesforce for like, $500,000. And unless you're selling to operations people, sales leaders don't go there.
No.
It's operations people on the administrative side. If that's who you're selling to, great.
There's a lot of that. And I think it's so important that I think the best thing you could do when you come in there is, hey, start working, ask all the stupid questions.
Yes.
Be humble. Like even if you paid 6 figures, doesn't matter.
You got to be a
Find a couple.
detective.
Yeah.
Because you got too many options. The
Yeah.
menu is endless.
Yeah.
And who knows what works?
Yeah. And then I think like at core, like I have to say this because I believe in this, is like you have to establish a system of measurement, something that can provide you with a baseline. Because like you're changing something, but if you don't even know where you are, well, I mean, you have no idea whether whatever you're doing is working. And I think that's a very, very important thing there. To kind of focus on collecting data, whichever way you can, but make sure that you collect the data, start owning the data, you can work with the data. I have to say this, that's what I believe in, right?
Well, I do the same thing. I get all excited, you get 100,000 views or this or that. But then like on LinkedIn, you can see who viewed it. Mm-hmm. And less than half were my target audience.
Yeah.
Right.
That's still pretty good.
It's still pretty good, but it's like, okay, there goes half.
Yeah.
And I think even with the data, you go, that's one opinion. It's a good opinion, but you really need to dig. And
totally.
Okay, did the data correlate with what everyone is saying?
Mm-hmm.
How do we debate this? How do we discuss it to make sure we're finding what true north is for us?
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think if you can arrive at a place where you have a way of looking at data that is kind of agreed between sales and marketing, it also enables a ton of creativity all of a sudden.
Yes.
Because now, I think that was something I learned, I have learned the hard way, is like I get a ton of good ideas, except only half of them are good, or maybe not even half. Like,
until you try them. Yeah.
The big problem is I don't know. And sometimes I execute on this idea for too long and I get committed and then I get fired because, hey, it wasn't a good idea. And I think establishing a system of measurement that you can trust between everybody and that kind of establishes it's a simple language of money between everybody. Like, hey, I'm here to make money. We made dollars. We made new biz revenue. We're making LTV. If everybody can talk about that and believe in it, then it enables experimentation. You can say, hey, we've never done a webinar. Let's do one and let's see how it works. Yeah. Does it actually make sense, right? And maybe you do it and you look at your data and it says, hey, it didn't really make a difference. Let's not do anymore. And then you come back, look at your data 6 months later and you go like, oh, hey, like we actually had 2 of those convert to like $15,000 deals.
Yeah.
Why don't we do another webinar? It was like $2,000 to do it. Like the cost was so low, and that's recorded and sent it out. And like that type of experimentation gets enabled. And I think that's how like marketing and sales should be working.
Yes. Yeah. Because I mean, I think the salespeople know the individual customers better, but marketing knows the different options.
Yeah.
And it is kind of a mold of it. And if they both agree and buy into it, at least if it doesn't work, they're not calling each other names.
No.
Yeah.
And I think like salespeople are very creative and marketing people are very creative. It's not the same type of like being creative.
Yeah.
They have different types of creativity. And in a great business, this comes together and everybody gets to be creative in the way that makes sense to them. And then you make money. But you need a way to know like which of all those like crazy ideas you had actually work, right?
Yeah. Cool. Hey, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go connect with you and learn more about your work?
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Would you like to give an email address or website?
So I work for dreamdata.io and I'm Larss at dreamdata.io.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that interview. Hey, I want to make sure you're checking out b2brevenue.com. That is where you can get a free copy of an ebook that I did. It's a real ebook. It's not a fluff book. It shows and talks about how companies make buying decisions and how you can influence that from both a marketing and a sales standpoint, how to find all the people that are in the decision path and what they need to see, know, and touch and feel before they make a product selection. If your team needs some coaching, some help, some training, some systems, some processes that do work today, because we know what doesn't work, or you know what doesn't work. I'll show you what does work and how to connect and get into pretty much any account. It includes deal coaching and content community, and I can customize it for your particular company. Just go to b2brevenue.com, look under training, schedule a call with me. We can talk it over, or just sign up. You can pay per month or all at once, whichever makes most sense for your budget. Also, I put out videos pretty much daily on LinkedIn and on YouTube. On LinkedIn, it's Brian G. Burns, and on YouTube, it's Brian Burns Sales. Just search for that if you like to consume some video content. And if you see me on LinkedIn, please put a comment and a share and a like on some of the videos. I really appreciate it. I've got a company page for each podcast. This one, the B2B Revenue Leadership Podcast, where I put both content and humor videos out daily. And tell a friend about the podcast. Really appreciate you listening. Check out the show notes for all the partners and the connections you can make there, the coupon codes for the products to evaluate them, see if they're a right match for you. And we'll see you next time.